Hello my friends, and welcome to the Metal Shop. Today we're doing a little bit more of the wiring. Let's call it rewiring, because I figured out that mounting the fuse block here on the passenger side did not afford me enough wire to get to things that are, hi George, to get to things that are on the far side of the dash. I'm a little disappointed that quick wire, you know, they say that this fuse block has to be mounted up under the dash. They don't say anything like it has to be in the center of the dash. It has to be, you know, they do tell you in the instructions there's only so much wire, so, you know, plan accordingly. But everything that I have to mount now, the ignition switch is on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. Okay, that's fine. I don't have enough wire to reach anything over there, even if I had a standard Chevy style ignition switch in the column on this side. This is where I mounted it here. This is as far as the wires reach. That's it. So it won't reach the high beam indicator. It won't reach for the turn signal indicator. There's a red battery light indicator. Nothing in the ignition. Now the high beam, I understand I'm going to use a foot switch, so that's going to require a longer wire, but I'm not going to extend all these wires. You know, this is ridiculous. I thought initially that, oh, I'll just extend a couple wires, but no, it's too many. They're all color-coded. I'd rather have the color-coded wires with the labels on them going to what they're supposed to go to just for the future. So I got to move the fuse panel. Giant pain in my behind. Take the bolts out. I can flip it over at least, so now the diagram will appear the right way and the switch will be on top. But I got to, you know, pull and tug on a bunch of wires and monkey screw around and so on and so forth. So I'm going to get that going. Cool. Not cool. All right, so what we're looking at here is the moved fuse panel. I moved it all the way over, more centrally located here behind the dash. I wanted to kind of split the difference between tucking it up behind the dash so you can't see it, but not up so high that you can't reach it. So I think I've achieved that. I've run the harness over here and I've wrapped it. Thankfully, I had some of this old McMaster car. This is just the kind of the plastic stuff, not the really good looking. It's not the Summit Racing cloth looking wrap, which I really like. And I bolted a hanger there for that, just for that big harness, just to keep it up out of the way. And it required, of course, I had to move the fuse there and the relay that I had just bolted in earlier. They're the bolts for the fuse panel. And of course, sorry, I'm trying to lighten this up so you can see it. And of course, that meant I had to grind down the self-tappers there because they were poking through and they'd be right behind the fuse panel. So, you know, just like dominoes, they fall. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start wiring up the ignition switch here. I've got some research materials. The Ford, this is an aftermarket Ford, this is what they sell today. Didn't come with the color-coded wires that match the Ford, but it's easy enough to figure out with a continuity signal on, you know, a test probe where each one goes. So C, coil, S, starter, B is for the battery, and the post is your accessory terminal. And I'm also going to hook up my push button starter, simple, and I have the coil, which is the pink, which is switch power. I'm going to use coil for this, and the yellow is for the, this is for the Holly Sniper, the yellow is for the tachometer signal, which I've chosen to run under the dash, even though both of these could have run, I could run this harness right over to the distributor, since these are the two wires that are on the distributor anyway. So that's next. Awesome, we're getting there, all my friends. Can't remember exactly where we left off. I think I had just moved the fuse panel, hard to see, right there, to get the wires enough slack to reach the ignition switch and everything over this way. I did get the high beam, low beam switch. Not sure exactly where I'm going to mount it. I really have no room. I guess I'm going to have to put the body on here and see if there's any room at all. This assembly here is really, it's cramped. It's cramped for your feet in there. I know when Pete's Garage did his, he cut this bar off and welded straight across. He welded this piece in here and straight across just to have more room to get to that clutch. But I mean, it's tight in there. The problem is the Wilwood pedal assemblies, they're pretty far apart, and they're kind of far from the gas pedal. It'd be nice if these were a little closer together and they could be moved that way, but nature of the beast, they really can't. So, oh well. Couple of bad days here in the metal shop. I'm not gonna end up running the Lucas 31743 switch for the turn signals. This has no provision to run the brake light through it, and you have to run a separate hazard switch, which was no big deal, which was what I was going to do. But the more and more I thought about it, I realized that my I Did It column comes with that large harness, and I could wire in all of the turn signal and brake and hazard inputs. Nice. Right to that. So that's what I ended up doing. You can see it right there. You know, just the standard, you know, flat blade harness that you get on your steering column. And the quick wire kit actually came with some nice parts to wire that up. You know, there's a couple of, this place is a mess, but there's a couple of headlight pigtails in there. There's some of these crimp connectors. These are the crimp connectors that are used in that flat blade harness, and it had an alternate piece for a different style. I used the Chevy style, which is what I did. It came with, but it also came with this one here, which you could wire up and use. Not even sure what kind this would be. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, what I was saying, a couple of bad days here. So what I decided to do was use the I Did It column. So I'm just going to use the regular turn signal handle, which is nice. It's self-canceling, and the 427s did come with a regular handle. They used a Volkswagen assembly there. And the hazards are built in here. So I'm going to do that. And if you notice, there's a big hole in my dash here. And I thought, oh, I'll just, real quick little project for today, I'm just going to run the speedometer cable. Oh, this. Yeah, so I can't get couldn't get the adapter off. I sent away, I ordered a steering wheel puller from Summit, so I have to pull this off just to had to pull the whole thing apart just to put the arm in for the turn signal. So there's bad day number one. Bad day number two, here, let me get this other part. Sorry that I'm not prepared. I meant to do this ahead of time. I'll just put I'll just run this, can't even get a box open. So I'm gonna run the speedometer cable. I got this from Modern Driveline. It's long, it's a little too long, no big deal. Comes with this really nice right angle adapter for the reverse sweep speedometer. So just a little thumb wheel here, and I'm just gonna, easy peasy, I'll put this on to the back of the speedometer, thread on the speedometer cable, and leave it laying in there. You know, no big deal. Well, I ran into some issues in that it wouldn't thread on. This adapter would not thread on to save my life. And I'm not kidding. The threads disintegrated. They literally turned to dust on the back of my speedometer. Now, the first third of these, I broke off by hand with a thumb wheel. So no force, no nothing. I'm turning these on to the back here with a thumb wheel. And all of a sudden I'm hearing tink, tink, and I'm like, what is this? And it's these little pieces are breaking off it. I'm like, okay. So I pull the speedometer out, and I can see what's going on, but I clean up the threads, and I get, you know, there's still enough on there, I think. So I'm gonna try and use this just to get the threads cleaned up with a wrench and go real easy. Yeah, well, that broke the rest of the threads off this thing. So, yeah. I talked to Niceonger Instruments about having this rebuilt, and he said basically you have to tear the whole thing apart. And I looked inside, and this collar here is part of a whole big assembly that sits in there. and he said it's really not worth it. You're going to be right. He said it's very close to the cost of a new gauge, so you might as well just get a new gauge. $325. What a humiliating kick in the crotch that is. So my $200 good deal instruments, you know, these are all brand new instruments pulled right out of a Superformance Cobra. And Nicelonger supplies the gauges to the Cobras. Nicelonger supplies gauges to Superformance. Just as a little side note there, the very nice guy at Nicelonger said he's only seen this a couple of times, and it was with Superformance cars. And he said what they did is they used some sort of a Loctite on there, and he said, and they make it way too tight. And he said he thinks, he's not sure exactly how this happens, but he said the Loctite somehow has a reaction and breaks down this cast part into, you know, this is like it was made with clay and baked in an oven or something. Ridiculous. So a whole set of gauges is $900. So even if it's $200 for these, $325 for a new speedometer, I'm still way ahead. But God, this is so irritating. $325, and I'm gonna try and be nice here. This is a very cheaply made gauge. These gauges are very inexpensively made. They're not inexpensive to buy, but they're just cheap. They're cheap gauges. You want an original looking gauge, you want it to say Smiths on it, you're paying for it. A similar gauge like this from Autometer that's probably built twice as good as this is about $200. $325 for this. Have you ever seen anything like this? These are cast threads, and I'm not even kidding. Just by hand, this nice little adapter that I got from Modern Driveline shattered those threads to bits. So, yeah. God, I'm sorry. I really dislike that harsh light there, and I really apologize for that. So, there's the update. Couple bad days in the metal shop. Yeah. See you soon. All right, so I'm not sure exactly where we left off. I did get that steering wheel puller in from Summit. Quickly pulled off the adapter portion here so that I could bolt on the turn signal stock, which pretty nice, very positive feel. And the very nice thing is, imagine having yourself a 1966 Cobra with canceling turn signals. So that's pretty nice. Got that all put back together. I did get my brand new speedometer, and I could not wait. I threw it right in because I wish that I'd shown you the difference. Because if you remember, this horrible cast thread on the back of it just crumbled to dust. Well, the new one comes obviously some very nice stainless threads, bushing, whatever type of deal, pressed on to the cast piece. Much nicer threads. I really had no issues whatsoever getting my right angle to thread right in. I'm going to say a couple of words here about Nicelonger instruments where I bought them out of Marononic, New York, something like that. Not good at pronouncing those Indian names. You can call them on the phone. They do all their sales via phone. The guy's extremely knowledgeable and super helpful. You know, kind of talks down to you a little bit, but whatever. I mean, he knows a lot more than you do when you're calling about these instruments, and he's a New Yorker. Ha ha ha. Anyway, but seriously. So I paid $325 for that gauge and $28 shipping. Now, I ordered on a Tuesday and I had it on a Friday. I didn't ask how much shipping would be, but I'm going to be completely honest here. I feel like I got gouged a tiny bit here. You can get the exact same gauge from the UK, from Merlin, for, even with a conversion, right now it's $245, and shipping is $20. By my math, that's $265. I paid, whatever, $353. That's a $98 difference. Now, I don't like to be cheap. I'm supporting a business in the United States during tough times right now with the quarantine, during the pandemic here. I like supporting a local business. If I have a warranty problem, I can send it right back. I can call these guys on the phone. So that's good. But you're going to pay for the privilege, and I just wanted to be completely open about that. That's not negative. It's just the facts. It is what it is. So what I am doing today is I'm installing, now this is the trip counter reset. Oh, it's going flying. And this little cable plugs into the back of the speedometer. You can see it right there. It just kind of clips in. It's a square drive, much like the speedometer is itself. And so what you're doing is, you know, after your trip counter, you spin this little wheelie deal here, and it brings you back to zeros. Now, I did a lot of research as to where these were mounted on the original Cobras. I couldn't find anything, but it made sense to me to put it near the gauge here on the bottom edge of the dash. And what I did find was someone who couldn't locate theirs on their Superformance car, which are made, you know, they're the continuation series cars, and they said they're mounted on the bottom edge of the dash just to the left of the speedometer. So that's where mine is going to be, right there. Unfortunately, I didn't drill a hole for it ahead of time, so I'm going to have to drill a small hole, and then eventually I'm going to go with 5/16. There really isn't any room, so I'm going to use the right angle bit here, and I've already gone in there with a razor blade and cut a little X into the vinyl dash. So I'm going to drill the hole through, and this just, obviously, this just pushes through, and this is a thumb wheel that you take off, and it screws this in place. Should be a pretty simple operation. I'm going to stop now because I got 4 minutes 27 on the clock. All right, so I'm sitting here in the cockpit, and let's just say putting the trip counter reset here was an epic failure. I mean, how, you say? Just drilling a hole, one hole, how hard could it be? Well, every time I try and do something with any semblance of originality to this car, it's difficult because this isn't an original car. And everything, all of these switches, all these pulls, and the little reset, they're all made to go into a sheet metal dash. They're not made to go into fiberglass that is 1/4 of an inch thick. So I drilled a hole, and not thinking, put it through, couldn't get to thread. I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, of course, it's too thick. So I spent way too long, probably an hour up in here, trimming back the vinyl that was wrapped around, trying to, if you remember, all my faithful viewers, all these holes in the dash I did for these, I had to route the back side of the dashboard so that I could get all of these screws, all these threads to start. So if you look down here, I put a giant bolt in the hole just to cover it up and pinch that the vinyl there. What I ended up doing is I just put it in the glove box. You know, it's not ideal, it's not original, but that took me 2 seconds instead of the hour I wasted here. Now I can use the hole that I drilled and make a little plate that will accept that little thumb wheel, and I could put it, you know, just back here a little bit, and I may do that. I may not. I mean, we'll see. It's just, my friends, I'm tired. I'm tired of banging my head against the wall. Whenever I try and do something with any semblance of originality to this car, it's a giant pain. Instead of just moving forward and taking a project and doing it, which would be fine and easy, you know, even this, the steering wheel. I want an original steering wheel. Remember, I had to drill this thing out. This is set for a Momo steering wheel, which the bolt pattern doesn't made up, so I had to drill the steering wheel, second set of holes, and countersink those to get this to work. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm just discouraged. So anyway, I'm closing this out. Beautiful day here. Took a break, went for a walk for like an hour. Yeah. So, as always, my friends, thank you for watching. Appreciate your support. Please give me a like, click subscribe. Stay safe out there, my friends. Hopefully one day, soon, we'll get back to normal. All right? Take care. Bye-bye.